Newly revealed details have sent shockwaves through the investigation into a mysterious death linked to a popular singer. Authorities have now confirmed the identity of the victim found wrapped in plastic in the trunk of the singer's car. 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, who had been missing for over a year. But what's more chilling? The singer, David Anthony Burke, whose car the body was discovered in, is under intense scrutiny. Despite his team claiming full cooperation, questions about his involvement and a bizarre connection to the victim are surfacing. Was this a tragic coincidence, or is there more to the story? We're diving into the latest developments and examining the evidence that's raising eyebrows. Stay with us as we uncover the twists in this case.
Welcome to True Crime Tapes, where we bring you the most gripping, mysterious, and heart-stopping stories from the world of true crime. If you're fascinated by the unknown and want to uncover the secrets that the world tries to hide, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chilling story. And for those of you already part of our community, welcome back. We're glad to have you with us. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts and theories, because we love hearing from you. True Crime Tapes. The truth is always stranger than fiction.
Earlier this month, workers at a Hollywood impound facility detected a powerful stench emanating from one of the vehicles. The odor was so overwhelming and putrid they had no alternative but to contact police. Upon officers' arrival, the shocking discovery unfolded: a body wrapped in plastic and abandoned in the automobile's trunk. When investigators researched the vehicle's ownership, they learned it was registered to the performer David, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke. Officials state the automobile was towed from the Hollywood Hills after someone reported it missing. Authorities believe the remains were placed in the trunk approximately 5 days before being transported to the impound facility. Initially, we lacked crucial information, including the victim's identity. Did this person have connections to the performer? Was the artist a person of interest or suspect? We continue awaiting additional details, but now investigators reportedly determined the victim's identity. This week, we're discovering that the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner identified the victim as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas. According to LAPD, the victim measured 5 feet 2 inches, possessed wavy hair, and bore a tattoo on her right index finger reading SH. She was discovered wearing a tube top, black leggings, an earring, and a yellow metal chain bracelet. According to a TMZ report, though, performer David also possessed that identical tattoo on his right index finger. However, this doesn't necessarily indicate murder suspect status. It might represent an unusual coincidence, particularly with other celebrities like Lindsay Lohan, Rihanna, and Lily Allen sporting the same marking. Here's additional information about 15-year-old Celeste. Her mother informed local reporters she had been missing for over a year. Her mother stated when she witnessed news coverage of the body found in David's Tesla, it seemed suspicious because her daughter's boyfriend was also named David. Limited information exists regarding events preceding Celeste's disappearance. According to a missing person poster, she was last observed on April 5, 2024 in Lake Elsinore, California. At that time, she was 13 years old. She was last spotted wearing gray pants, a black sweater, hats, and Hello Kitty sandals. Attorneys representing the performer state he continues providing cooperation with the investigation. While authorities haven't publicly declared him a suspect, this hasn't prevented some individuals from forming their own conclusions. Several observant fans pointed to David's previous songs as potential clues or messages, such as romantic homicide. His lyrics include, "In the back of my mind, I killed you and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you." That track was released in 2022, 2 years before Celeste disappeared and 3 years before her body was discovered. Yet again, this didn't stop some people from speculating. Then, in another Wednesday TMZ report, the performer professed his love to someone named Celeste in an unreleased track. According to the report, those unreleased songs included the lyrics, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed." The additional verse contained the lyrics, "Oh, Celeste, afraid you'll only love me when undressed, but you look so damn gorgeous in that dress. Missing you so much makes me depressed." But I digress because now, according to the report, that song leaked in December 2023, just months before Celeste was officially reported missing. It's important to note no official confirmation exists that Celeste in the leaked song is the same Celeste found in the vehicle. Companies like Crocs and Hollister withdrew their marketing campaigns after Celeste's body was discovered. In a joint statement, the brands wrote, "We are aware of this developing story. With respect to the current situation, we have removed campaign content featuring David while the investigation continues." According to a previous TMZ report, police informed David that a body was inside his Tesla because he had no knowledge of what was occurring. However, it remains unclear how the automobile registered to him ended up in a tow facility if it wasn't even reported missing. Again, the performer's representative states he has been providing cooperation. But we learned today he's suspending his current world tour. According to TMZ, he was scheduled to perform in Seattle for a concert, but sources tell the outlet that show was canceled and the remainder of his tour is on pause. Following the latest investigation developments, ABC 7 Eyewitness News reports a residence near where the Tesla was abandoned was searched. Dozens of investigators were reportedly observed removing a computer and other items from a Hollywood home. Some homeowners told the news outlet they remembered seeing that Tesla for a while, either parked at the house where police conducted their search or at other locations on the same street. But as of this recording, he isn't named as a suspect and no criminal charges have been filed against him. So, the mystery and investigation continues. Well, it looks like it's a terrible, terrible tragedy for that 15-year-old girl's family, obviously the victim. And the fact that she was found in a trunk indicates there's some level of foul play at this. And it's only going to get more interesting and probably more tragic as the story emerges. I think probably the biggest part of this story is that the automobile the victim was found in was registered to a very popular performer. Says Colin Schmidt, retired FBI agent, we know the performer is cooperating with the investigation and officials haven't named him as a suspect or person of interest. But in your opinion, with the information we know now, do you think he has anything to do with it? Well, the problem is for whoever did this, a Tesla is nothing more than a rolling supercomputer. So it's going to have all kinds of information when they get the data and when engineers get in and extract everything. I'm confident they're going to know exactly what happened in a very short period. The fact that there's such a close connection between the deceased and this rapper, it's only going to get more interesting, like I said, as far as what really happened. It's interesting, too, the circumstances as we're learning more, because the victim's mother even told police she got suspicious it was her daughter because her daughter also had a boyfriend named David. Do you think that's just a terrible coincidence? We're also learning they both had this tattoo on their index finger with the letters SH written on it, similar to many other celebrities, especially in the millennial era, who also had that same tattoo. Do you think this is all just a terrible coincidence? Well, unfortunately in violent crime there's no such thing as a coincidence. A coincidence is actually circumstantial evidence. So all these data points are starting to point towards this rapper. We don't know what his role was and if indeed he did have anything to do with it, but it does appear there's some sort of culpability this rapper is going to have with this girl's death. Where does the investigation or investigators really go from here? They know the identity of the victim. The cause of death right now is listed as deferred, but what happens next? Well, the most important piece of evidence is the body. The body tells the entire story. As I understand from social media, the medical examiner has not finished their investigation, and the next step would be obviously the toxicology reports, which take a couple of days to weeks to get back. That's going to point investigators in the direction of where to take their next steps, as well as searching the interior of the compartment she was found in and the passenger compartment, because if there was any blood or signs of foul play or violence, then that obviously points in a direction they need to go. What's going to be more important to the investigation? Finding out what happened inside that automobile, if anything happened inside that automobile or the forensic evidence in the vehicle, or is it going to be finding where the crime scene actually took place and working backwards from there? Well, working backwards is from the body, and the body basically points all the directional arrows, so to speak, on where to go, and then from there obviously they go and do a forensic analysis of that automobile. Like I said, the most important piece of that vehicle is that onboard computer, which has so much information that even Tesla owners don't know the extent of information that automobile has on it. I'm fairly confident the owner wasn't sophisticated enough to know how to wipe or eliminate that information on that vehicle. Does it change anything? We know the Tesla automobile is like a smart vehicle, and even though I'm not as technologically savvy as you are, Colin, I'm interested in knowing, Does it change anything in terms of the investigation because the automobile was towed to that impound facility? Does that change anything in terms of the data that might be on that vehicle? No. When the vehicle is on, it's gathering thousands and thousands of data points. Now it was off. Basically, we can presume it was on up until the time it was towed. So they know where it was when it was towed. So the tow part isn't really meaningful other than chain of custody. From the time it was sitting there towed back 24, 48, or even 2 weeks, they're going to know exactly where that automobile was, whether it was an accident. There's even cameras interior and exterior taking footage. So they're going to end up likely knowing who was in the vehicle prior to it being disposed of. Say investigators learned, because we know this is also a very big story because it surrounds performer David, because the automobile was registered to him. But say investigators learn he was out on tour, at an event or something. He has an alibi for the time frame they believe the murder took place. What happens next in terms of how they find possibly who else might be involved? Well, they're also going to find her phone. Possibly they didn't say whether the phone was on her or not. The phone obviously is, especially for a 15-year-old. Her whole life is in that phone. So they're going to establish her circle of friends and start interviewing all those people, as well as interviewing all the people around this rapper, this music artist, to see if they know anything and what exactly happened. The bottom line is you don't crawl into a vehicle and close the lid. Somebody had to have put her in that automobile, whether she was alive or dead when it happened. That will be something investigators will definitely find out. I believe it happened in LAPD territory, and they're considered the best homicide investigators in the world. So I have absolute certainty they're going to determine who did this and what happened. That whole other aspect, because we're just learning this information today, is that she was reported missing about a year ago. How important is that time frame of when she was missing and how long of a period that was? How will that play into her death investigation? Well, I think it's important that the family lost track of her a year ago, but it still comes right back to that automobile and what was going on in the vehicle prior to the tow truck picking it up and establishing the timeline. In any investigation or violent crime investigation, the timeline is most important. So they're going to have a timeline starting from when the automobile was found or when it was reported, and they'll go back 24, 48, or even 2 weeks, and they'll identify every place that vehicle was and likely where she was, and they'll fill in the blanks and identify who was involved in her death. She may not have been killed. She may have died of a drug overdose and somebody put her in the automobile. Either way, somebody's responsible for her being in that vehicle. I'm sure investigators and her family are trying to find out what happened to her, if they can gather any details to figure out what occurred. Colin, I want to thank you so much for your time and insight into this case. I did have one final question in terms of investigating a case like this where you have very little to go off of. How different is it to investigate a case like this now in 2025 where you have surveillance cameras, smart automobiles that gather all this technology and information, as opposed to maybe 20 years ago where we didn't have all this technology readily available? Well, I think on its face it appears cognitively that it should be easier, but in fact, it's actually harder because investigators are just overloaded with data and information. At some point, AI will probably take a role in these investigations to sift through mountains of data investigators receive from their court orders to Tesla or iPhone or wherever to filter out all the noise and get to the point. 20 years ago, it was a matter of just going and interviewing people and getting their story. Now, it's a whole different story with all these data points investigators have to sift through. With that being said, do you see there might be a possible end in sight in terms of the investigation anytime soon, or do you think this might be a very long investigation? Well, based upon it was in a Tesla, I would speculate it's not going to be long. If it was in like a Mustang from the 60s that has no onboard computing ability, it would be a different story. But like I said, that Tesla has so much data, and there are so many tools out there that will aid investigators in getting through that data. I expect they likely will quickly know exactly what happened to that girl. I'm sure and I hope they find out soon what happened to her, because it's just devastating overall how horrible this case truly is. Again, Colin Schmidt, thank you so much for your time and insight into this case. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Investigators are still working to find Celeste's cause of death, but LAPD says they are investigating the case as a homicide. Again, David is not being publicly named as a suspect at the time of this report. Thanks so much for joining us here on True Crime Tapes.